And the building that's not the window has.
Good evening, everyone. Could I please ask you to stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You might have to shift down. You might be okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Town Board meeting. It is Tuesday, October 24th, 2017. The first thing on our agenda is a presentation from regarding MTA and the DOT regarding the railroad crossings. David Smith is going to help us with the presentation, the PowerPoint we have here. David? Well, let me, before you start, I just wanted to read a little statement before we got started. First of all, I want to thank members of the MTA, the New York State DOT, and the Governor's Office for attending this evening. The Town Board has requested this informational meeting with the MTA and New York State DOT to share our thoughts and concerns with them about the future of our crossings and receive the thoughts and concerns of residents in the impacted area. Your questions and concerns are important to us, and there will be a record of them. We have the stenographer with us this evening. We will do our best to answer them. If not tonight, there will be a follow-up. To reassure everyone, the Town Board has not approved anything, nor have we agreed to any plans to move forward at this point, aside from what you may have heard. Nor do we have the authority on our own to close the crossings. That decision solely lies with the New York State Commissioner of Transportation. Our first priority is to evaluate the concerns and alleviate the potential impacts of closing crossings. We are all well aware of the tragedy that took place over 2.5 years ago at the Commerce Street crossing, something none of us ever want to see happen again anywhere. So why are we discussing Cleveland Street? Since the accident, many studies have been undertaken on all the crossings, not just in Mount Pleasant, but throughout the state and the country. Commerce Street, due to the accident, has raised red flags as to the necessity of closing that crossing due to its inherent challenges. And Cleveland Street has become a focus due to many negative conditions that we will be discussing. The priority for the Town Board is to ensure the safety of our residents and those that travel through our community. Unfortunately, we must also look at the town's exposure legally and make sure we are never again put in the position we are now in, where is there a potential to bankrupt the town through lawsuits we must defend. So that everyone has the opportunity to express their thoughts, be considerate and understanding, and give everyone the opportunity to speak. We will ask you to come up to the mic if you're going to make any comments. And be fair, we are holding to the 5-minute rule for everyone. We have and will continue to accept written comments by email or by letter. The simplest, I agree with you. The simplest and easiest thing for the board to do would be to ignore the recommendations and hope nothing ever happens again. But that would be the irresponsible thing for us to do. So I thank you, and David, thank you. Yeah, everyone would please sign in if they're going to come up to speak.
Thank you, Honorary Board, residents of Mount Pleasant. Just wanted to give, before I give the presentation that was put together with our counterparts who are looking to move ahead on a potential review of these closures, I just wanted to give the quick history of how we got to this point. Unfortunately, due to the tragic events that occurred, the town became party to the investigation of the crash that occurred at the Valhalla or Commerce Street crossing. Under that review, we were requested by the NTSB to look at the potential for closure of Commerce Street. We also added the three remaining crossings to see how they compared to one another, and then we proceeded to do an assessment report. That assessment report was accepted by NTSB. It was actually recommended for the town to take action on it as part of the findings of the report, and it's also been made available for the public to review. Okay, and now to the presentation before you. Next slide. We're having technical difficulties, but the purpose and need of the potential for considering closures. The purpose was to mitigate the number of vehicle railroad conflict points, also to enhance pedestrian safety, access adjacent to the railroad tracks and the Taconic State Parkway. Another purpose and need was to facilitate the movement of the vehicular traffic and commerce within the town. And another item was to provide infrastructure necessary to enhance economic development. Just give us another second. And while we're waiting for our slides to be fixed here, I just wanted to see if we could have some representatives introduce themselves from the other parties. I know there's discussions on our presentation to the board that there was an oversight in scheduling. I just wanted to correct the record to make sure that we have our support that we received in the beginning, if you don't mind.
My name is Clifford Thomas. I'm the director of the Rail Safety Bureau, New York State Department of Transportation.
Hey, good evening. My name is David Meyer. I'm the MTA Chief Safety Officer.
I'm Ron Epstein, Assistant Commissioner for Policy and Planning, New York State Department of Transportation.
Good evening. Todd Westice, New York State DOT, Hudson Valley Regional Director.
And good evening. I'm Ann Kirsch, MTA Senior Advisor at Corporate Safety.
Thank you. Go on to the next slide. Background, just let you know that Metro North, DOT, and the town have been visiting all four. We visited all four crossings. We reviewed their attributes. We made some discussions, and mainly these discussions were how do we make the crossings safer than what they are currently operating at. There was a program to enhance the pedestrians and motorist safety at the four railroad crossings. One was, of course, Stevens, Lakeview, Commerce, and Cleveland, but not in that order. Included with the visits were the traffic conditions observed at each of the locations, and also very preliminary engineering estimates of the proposed improvements. We also addressed current and future mobility needs of the community, residents, and local businesses. This is a map just depicting the four crossings and the close proximity to one another. As you see that there are, I believe we have the most closures, the most crossings in a municipality in Westchester County. Okay, based on our findings, our recommendations based on preliminary review of these intersections was to improve crossing infrastructure at Lakeview and Stevens Avenue, and that's some minor improvements to make those crossings safer. The other recommendation was to eliminate crossings at Cleveland and Commerce Street, and part of that was to construct the South Kensico access road. To discuss preliminary proposed enhancements, which we felt, based on conceptual designs, would be less intrusive to the area, would be One, to provide an alternate road access. A new connector road would be constructed along the west side of the Metro-North Railroad tracks. This new roadway would connect the north end of South Kensico Avenue to Legion Drive. Improvements will be made at the existing intersection with Legion Drive to facilitate emergency vehicles and school buses. And part of the benefit of these improvements were that majority of all these areas are municipal right-of-way. Doesn't require any land takings, which sometimes can happen with grade crossing removals. This is a preliminary sketch that was done to show where the paper street is, and actually this is the town preliminary sketch to show the improvements at Legion Drive area that's indicated in the red, and also the potential connector road. When this plan was discussed with DOT used their experts and basically came up with a better, more significant conceptual design, which will be shown later slides. The Cleveland Street proposed enhancements. The first enhancement would be the crossing would be eliminated to facilitate pedestrian access over the Metro-North tracks, and new ADA accessible pedestrian overpass would be constructed from the new connector road over the west track. It would basically connect into the existing bridge that connects both tracks at Metro-North. So when somebody's walking up the new potential connector road, they'll have direct access into the station. The we also, because there was a experience that the school bus, there's a school bus drop-off on the other side of the tracks. Our assumption was because of the geometrics of the roadway that was facilitating the need for a crossing for the school bus on the other side. So we also included a bus turn-off drop-off location on the new connector road, so it could allow parents to drop off their kids and also allow buses to turn properly and access the area through the new connector road. The roadway leading up to the crossing would be stubbed, permanent closure devices installed, including security fence, to prevent pedestrians and vehicles from traversing the crossing. And also, the existing grade crossing and signal apparatus would be removed. This was a plan that our counterparts at DOT provided. They spent a little bit more time looking at the grades, looking at the potential for retaining walls and the actual bridge structure. This is a plan view of those improvements. This next plan shows again an aerial of the new road with the proposed sidewalk on the one side, also showing the proposed retaining wall and then the connection to the railroad station. This is also another detail that were submitted by our counterparts that shows how the conceptual elevation would look from the potential new roadway and the potential pedestrian overpass structure to the railroad crossing. The next intersection is Commerce Street. The proposed enhancement would be the crossing would be eliminated. It is anticipated that diverted traffic would cross the Metro-North at Lakeview, which is less than a half mile south of the existing crossing. The roadway leading up to the crossing will be stubbed, permanently closed, with devices installed, including security fencing, to prevent vehicles and pedestrians from traversing the crossing. The existing grade crossing and signal apparatus would be removed. Also, the traffic signal at the Taconic State Parkway will have the preemption phases removed, so there would be significant improvements to the traffic delays at that intersection. The proposed enhancement at Lakeview and Stevens Avenues, the at-grade crossings at Lakeview and Stevens Avenue will remain open to vehicular traffic. Improvements will be made to enhance sight distance and road surface conditions. The railroad warning system for Lakeview and Stevens Avenue will be interconnected to the traffic signals operations at the Taconic State Parkway. A pre-signal will be installed along the eastbound approach on both locations to prevent vehicles from queuing onto the tracks. And consideration will be given to restricting commercial traffic to local deliveries on only one or both of these roadways based on further traffic analysis to be analyzed later. To date, the estimated cost of all these improvements is $13 million, and that sum includes the new connector road and the retaining wall at Cleveland Street, the new pedestrian overpass at Cleveland Street, traffic signal roadway resurfacing and intersection upgrades at Lakeview and Stevens Avenue, new signal circuitry protection devices and associated modifications at Lakeview and Stevens Avenue, and the crossing elimination stubbing fencing at Commerce and Cleveland Street. And that concludes the presentation. I just want to let everybody know in the audience when we're taking questions that we do have up here a copy of my contact info with our email address. So if you have, if anything comes up tonight you weren't able to discuss, or if you have additional comments and questions, please take this this flyer and it'll provide you all the contact info for myself, and that will be distributed amongst the parties who are joining this this effort.
Thank you, David. At this time, we would accept public comments. I think we'd like to start in the front and work our way back. We'll start on this side. Anyone on this side would like to address us, you're welcome to do so.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Just when we talk about the cost of this, I don't think it was mentioned, but I'm only one town board member, but I don't have any intention of that the town of Mount Pleasant will pay for any of this. So that's my feeling. I'm sorry? Can't hear you. I'm sorry.
We have to get one person at a time to come up and speak.
Yeah. No, what I said was that I don't think it was clarified. The cost is $13 million, but nobody said who was paying for it, okay? From my perspective, the town of Mount Pleasant should not be paying for any of it.
And it's understood.
Understood.
I'd like to start in front here.
Good evening. I'm Nathan Resick. I live Pamela Lane, not far from Lakeview. Moved here 3 years ago with my family, and I always was aware of the danger of that crossing, always, because you never want to stop on the tracks. Now, I know what happened to this woman. She stopped on the tracks, right? It's a terrible thing. Sometimes I see traffic on Lakeview at a busy time, and it backs up to the Taconic, right? And everyone waits, and then the light changes, people go, and then people try to come behind you, and actually, I thought I saw a school bus stop on the tracks just yesterday. Like, I don't know why people don't do it, but I think a lot of personal responsibility, everyone should, maybe there needs to be some bigger signs, maybe a lit-up sign that says, do not stop on tracks. And if they kept the Commerce Street, I don't know how much of this has been decided, maybe if they had more warning signs before it, lit-up signs, do not ever stop on tracks. I know you've thought about this, but maybe it bears some more thinking about, because I don't know if they teach railroad track danger in driving school, but it seems common sense. You cannot stop on the tracks no matter what, and I'm still surprised I see people willing to do that and not paying attention. But Cleveland Street, I go see my kids in baseball games there. Some other people here do too, at the Pat Henry Field. And that always did strike me as dangerous, because there's only 2 cars can fit when you're waiting to cross, when the crossing's down, and the Taconic's right there, and it backed up. But then again, I guess if they put a new road in, that might be okay. But Commerce Street, I'm worried about, because when you get more traffic on Lakeview, you'll still have that problem of people backing up and being impatient and stopping on the tracks when they want to follow the other car right in front of them instead of waiting back. Anyway, that's just some food for thought, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you. Right here.
Maybe I should hold this. Okay, hi. I'm Gina Paolillo. I live pretty much in the triangle that was right where the Kensico Avenue would turn into Legion Drive and then would butt into Legion, the other Legion Drive. Anyway, I'm right on High Street. I cross over the Cleveland crossing on a very regular basis, and I have a lot of problems with that crossing. I have a few things I'd like to go through. Apart from the fact that the easy access to town was a big reason why we even bought that house. Coming from the city, it was important to me to be able to run out and buy milk or whatever I needed and not have to get in a car. I'm concerned about congestion because even if you put that extra road in, it's basically coming in a block south of the road that already comes into Legion. So then you have two roads. You have that entire neighborhood that is basically coming out and landing on Legion, which often gets congested. And then that road butts into a firehouse. So you have morning congestion, and there's a fire, and there's a fire truck trying to get out of the firehouse. And it just seems to me that you're kind of asking for trouble. I think that access in from Cleveland is really important, especially for people that live down on South Kensico. I don't happen to live there, but I go there a lot to baseball games. And I just think that those people will be cut off in kind of an extreme way. And a couple other things, emergency vehicles. I suppose this must have been taken into account, but everyone coming into the parking lot would now be coming off the Taconic. And I think that that could be an issue. Instead of, a lot of people come right by my house and go down, cross the Cleveland crossing, and go into the parking lot. I'm addressing just Cleveland because that's my issue, so bear with me on that. Also, I don't know, has there been an accident at Cleveland that we know of? No. At Cleveland? Yes. Yeah? Yes. I know of somebody who what's that? Not fatal, property damage. Okay. I know somebody turned onto the track following a GPS, and I saw the car fire from my house, but they were all okay. But that was, human error is always going to happen, right? I mean, we're always going to make mistakes. Another big issue that I have is that if anyone knows that crossing, there's a very big hill that comes up from Cleveland going into High Street. So basically, there are plenty of people whose cars can't get up that hill. So if it's snowing, and that's the only way out of that neighborhood, because either road, whether you're going on the Kensico that's going to turn into Legion Drive or the high that turns into Howard, both of those roads, you have to, if you're coming from South Kensico, you have to go up that crazy hill. I go up it all the time. I have a Subaru. I'm fine. But a lot of people have a problem. And again, I think for emergency reasons that could be an issue. And also, between Commerce and Cleveland, am I over my 5 minutes? Sorry. Between Commerce and Cleveland, I know that there are a lot of similarities that have been found between the two crossings, but a big, big difference, and I'm not saying Commerce should be closed because I don't necessarily think it should, but at Cleveland, we're in a residential area. That's all residents. And we are constantly going in and out of town, whether it's with our cars or by foot. And of course, living there, we know how to cross the train tracks, pretty much. I think most of us have figured it out. So I think, many of the crossings are going to be local. So the likelihood of somebody making a mistake there is maybe diminished. So it would have a huge impact, I think, on all of us living there. I think it would affect property values. For me, I have a business in my home, and I am starting to bring some people up from the city to come work out of there. And so, that's also an issue. People need to be able to get in by train. So I think that's it. My other thought is maybe there are just other ways to improve the crossing that aren't so drastic. Because the Cleveland Street proposal is the biggest and hugest and most intrusive change.
Thank you.
Just want to add one thing that wasn't mentioned in the presentation was that there are proposed improvements to the area from the DEP after the closure of the dam, and those improvements at Lakeview and which is a slip ramp and also a new traffic signal, and also the new traffic signal proposed at Columbus and Legion were used as the factors in these improvements as the grade crossings were considered to be closed. So those improvements are required as part of the initiative to close the crossings.
Thanks, Dave. Your time.
My name is Dennis Spinelli. A couple things that I haven't seen in any of the reports. There are extreme elevation problems there, and nobody has said how much they're going to cut them down on the new road that they're building. Because if you're coming from South Kensico and you're going to try to get up onto, the extension of South Kensico, that's next to impossible, even if you build a ramp to go there. So they're going to be lowering that down, which maybe that diagram showed, but we don't know how much. But then the 2 or 3 people who live there, their driveways are going to come so steep they're not going to be able to get down the driveway. There's nothing said about the parking that's been allowed on that street now, 4-hour parking, which is supposed to stop the railroad people from parking there. Also, it's going to make High Street much more dangerous, and there was talk about cars sliding around the corner into the tracks, which virtually is impossible because there's trees there. But now you're going to be coming down a much steeper road, dead end, right into the tracks, no chance to do anything. Nobody said anything about the number of trains that stop and slow down, either taking off from the station or leaving the station. Those trains, 64% of them during the day, not the weekends now, are either stopping or just taking off from the station. Number 2, it's on a curve, so they're slowing for the curve. It's not like the straightaway Commerce or Stevens Avenue where they're going 50 miles an hour. The other lady brought it up. The people are used to crossing because how many people go across that every day that live there? Nobody said anything about that. So 50 cars go across. Where are they coming from? Where are they going? Nobody knows. All right. Also, by closing this crossing, you're not eliminating the lawsuit. All right, you're still on the hook for all this money. I think Mr. Rubio's a lawyer, a halfway decent lawyer, should be able to say, the NTSB said we're not at fault. They said the state did their job, we did our job. They don't have any say in the town. The MTA and the DOT are the ones that are in charge of this stuff, and yet we're pulled into the lawsuit, and we have no say on the thing. If that was the case, we could have the roads closed 100 years ago when they put them in. They never did. Also, the 2 things should be separated. Commerce Street is an animal of its own, and Cleveland Street is totally different. All right? Turnaround for buses, that's a joke what you got there. There's no bus turning around there. Come on. I drive a bus, I know. Unless you're driving a little mini bus, a Honda Civic or something, you're not turning around at the bottom of that hill. It's impossible. And I hope this goes on further because I'd like to make more comments at the next meeting we have. Also, one other thing, why hasn't the dam people been brought into this? Because this is where this is all starting, where all the traffic. The traffic has been concentrated into our town because of the closure of the dam. They have done nothing since they had their report that spoke about, oh, we're going to put a light here, we're going to add a lane here. Nothing's been done. I don't know what they're waiting for, but they have to be pulled into this also because they're a basic cause of this problem overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, I'm trying to move my way down on this side.
Name is Rich Banquet, 40-year member of the town, and active in the volunteer fire department, so I was on the scene also. So I realize the tragedy, I realize what you're trying to do, but I also realize that it's critical to have and continue to have some kind of access to multiple parts of the areas that we go to. We have some members that live over in the area of Cleveland Street that come across Commerce Street and respond to the firehouse. Now, they're not our first responders, but they get the second or third due engines out. That's important to us. And vice versa with going to the other agencies, ambulance corps, the other fire departments. We're all volunteers, we all live in different parts of the town. So there's a dynamic that goes on that no one else really realizes what's happening there. Upstate New York, I have a place up there, and I don't have cable TV, I don't have cell phone service, and I don't have any of the other amenities that you have down here. But I have 3 brand new bridges that the DOT has paid for. And I have to say they paid, probably a little bit less up there because it's upstate New York. What I'm looking at is on the crossing, and I fully understand you want to close the crossing, but it's our roads and we're being affected. The railroad isn't being affected and the parkway isn't being affected. So I think it's only fair that the town of Mount Pleasant should have no cost to this. There should be consideration for a bridge over Lakeview, and that the Commerce Street is extended down, ties in with it, and make 2 connector roads to go across. Cleveland Street, I understand you're not going to be able to build a bridge into Valhalla. There's no physical way you could get a bridge over there that I could see. But at least you're trying to do something there, and I understand the concerns of everyone here with closing Cleveland Street. The town residents are being affected by this. So there should be a lot more emphasis on looking at not just cutting and capping the roads and saying, oh, well, that's the cheap way out. Anyone that knows me in this town, fiscal, conservative as far as spending money. I'm in government budgeting, so I know budgets, I know the strains, I know the 2% caps that we have to live under, the tax caps. However, there's an $11 billion budget in the DOT, and they're spending it upstate New York. Like I said, 3 bridges right next to, on my way to my house up there. I think we ought to really strongly consider putting a bridge across and eliminate the Lakeview and Commerce Street crossings and make it a crossover. All the town residents then could use it, the people that work in town could use it, there'd be no safety problems. There is some land along both sides. There is going to be some kind of, upsetting people and whatnot, but I think that might be the best idea. And I know on the other end of Gates of Heaven, that the lower entrance, you have another way of coming in up off of the other street. I understand that. I think we're all reasonable residents here. We understand you're trying to do your best, but please give the a bridge a consideration so that people can flow through. There's a lot of dynamics that's going to affect the traffic in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Rich Regal, Hawthorne. I'm a retired second-grade detective with the NYPD. I transverse the Commerce Street crossing twice every single day. There's not a problem with it, in my professional opinion. The results of closing that is the amount of commercial traffic that I do see is going to be routed through Lakeview. Not to mention you have cemetery activity. It's going to be a disaster for all the residents on the other side of Valhalla. Not to mention the amount of kids I see leaving Valhalla High School and middle school. We're going to send more commercial traffic up that way? It doesn't make sense. I see nothing wrong, in my professional opinion, with Commerce Street. Like I said, I transverse it twice a day. It shouldn't be closed. Lakeview's fine too. Cleveland, I'll leave alone because I don't know that much about it. But that's what I just wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jeanette Sporn. I live in Thornwood. I've been a resident of this town for 52 years. I took driver's ed in high school. I learned how to drive over a train track my first time out, my first car lesson. And it was at Cleveland Street. And he took us over the train tracks many times. I don't see any reason to close any of those streets. Kids going to Westchester Community College use that road, Commerce Street, all the time. I don't see it. The woman made a tragic error. People died, but you can't close crossings that have been working perfectly fine since I've been in this town for 52 years. So, thank you.
Good evening. Michael Sheehy, Pleasantville, also author of the upcoming New York State Fire Academy paper, Last Stop Valhalla, which is a paper regarding the incident February 3rd, 2015. I want to address something that a previous speaker said about Cleveland Street. Excuse me? Oh, the mic, yeah, okay. There have been 6 incidents since 1975, between 75 and 96, that report the Federal Railroad Administration meets their criteria. Number of fatalities, 5 were property damage only to a vehicle. 1 did involve injuries. 2 of them were a stuck truck that shouldn't have been going over the crossing to begin with. 2 of them was somebody trying to beat the train, and the other 2 are somebody who stopped on the tracks. And it's interesting, as far back as 1928, the New York State Public Service Commission called for Cleveland Street to be closed, along with Roaring Brook and several other crossings, some which are now closed, such as Bedford Road and Manville Road in Pleasantville, and several roads in Mount Kisco. Very expensive projects done in the 50s. But my question is this, what is the status of Assembly Bill 5235B? The New York State Department of Transportation was charged with putting out a report on grade crossing safety. It was due in April of 2017, according to Assemblyman Abenanti. He held a press conference on July 31st, asking the DOT, where's the report? I spoke to Abenanti's office today, and they said the DOT has not answered them as to when the report will be coming out. So I have 2 questions. One is anybody here from the DOT tonight who can address that? And secondly, how would this report shape what Mount Pleasant is proposing when that comes out? Is there anybody here from the DOT tonight who can address that? Thank you.
Assemblyman, thank you for being here today. Yes, DOT has conducted a report as was provided for in the legislation. As we have talked with your office, that report is pending the final NTSB report so that the recommendations can inform our report.
And which NTSB report are you awaiting? The final report is out as far as anybody knows.
We have seen the recommendations. We have not seen the final report.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Eileen Spies. I live on South Kensico Avenue, so Cleveland Street is definitely near and dear to me and the approximately 30 other households that are on that street, with approximately, I'll just say, about 2 cars per household. So let's just put it that way. Some people have more, a couple have less, or one person has none. But that's putting at least 60 cars a day going out that way and going to Legion Drive. Now, if there's a light at Commerce and Legion and it's red for Legion, it's going to back up. And we all know how commuters are. They don't mean to be that way, but they're aggressive. They don't really want to let you out. They don't want to, maybe they'll let one person out, but then there's still all the other people waiting behind you. So that's number one. Number two, I really need clarification on where this road is going. I'm hearing along the tracks. Well, is it staying down along the tracks, or do we have to go up a hill that we don't have to go up now? And when there's even a slight bit of inclemency, before it's plowable, before there's any standing done, that's treacherous. And I can tell you, I'm not from around here. I'm from Flat, Long Island. We bought the house where we bought it many years ago because I did not want to do a hill. My husband's from Valhalla. He can do donuts, and he can get out of them. I cannot. I'm terrified when it's that kind of weather. So when I try to get home on an inclement evening, I'm not going to be able to get up that hill. I would urge each of you to actually walk the walk, because I went to the top of South Kensico, that's a dead end up off of High Street and Hillside, and I took pictures, which I have them with me. They really don't do it justice. You have to walk to that dead end and look down and think of yourself in a car trying to navigate down or up. And it's going to be treacherous, and there may be many, many injuries and hazards because of having to navigate that. We bought the house where we bought it because there were no hills. There was no indication of that. And I don't really know where this road is going, what the grade is. If it says 10%, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. And where is this bridge that goes over? Because now the people that bought on the street that walk down and go across the crossing are going to have to go up a hill. Some of them have health issues, and now they're going to have to walk up a hill that they never had to walk up before. And as the woman before said, we all know how to use this street, use this crossing, and there has to be another way. To put that many people out on Legion Drive and no other way out but Legion Drive, either up high and Howard to Legion or South Kensico to Legion, and there are businesses there, there's extra traffic because of that, and then you have the Little League. I mean, that of course is not on in inclement weather, thank goodness, but it really is a concern. And we still don't understand where this street is going. Is it flat and along the tracks, or does it go up and meet up with South Kensico and then go down that hill? It's not safe. So thank you.
Just wanted to let people know that we will be making the presentation available on the website tomorrow, and it will show the schematic diagrams to look at it a little bit closer. The conceptual road, and it is a conceptual road right now, is to traverse the hill itself. It will be a 10% grade, or if need be, plus or minus the changes there. So like I said, it is conceptual. The purpose is to allow emergency vehicles and buses, so there has to be a certain grade for that too. But there is also consideration towards the residents that live there and the access to their houses. So as we would proceed forward with getting a little bit more details, if this was to proceed forward after these meetings, we'll have a better idea of what we can and can't do there.
David, just a question regarding 10% grade. Is there another road that people might be familiar with that's also 10% so they can get an idea what that
Yeah,
might be?
we'll provide you with some samples. I just want to let you know that Baker Property that's doing the development has a 10% grade road in their development, just so that they are designing with a 10% grade road.
Thanks. Tom?
Tom McCarthy, Commissioner of Valhalla Fire Department. Our main concerns is not only the traffic impact of all the crossings, because every one of them is going to impact Columbus Avenue, Legion Drive tremendously. South Kensico is a particular big problem for us. And what you just mentioned about your grades there, that's not going to help us get down to South Kensico at all, because you have that S-turn at the bottom, which we don't have any fire apparatus to go around that. All right? We do have fire apparatus at the MTA actually fix the railroad crossing so we can make sure we get all our apparatus over that crossing. So now, with this new proposal you guys have submitted that I saw, which, believe me, I'm a little upset of that we haven't been included in the loop at all. You know, we won't be able to get down there. That's a big problem to us. Having the Legion Drive extension coming out to by the Legion, we have a problem with making a turn off Legion Drive with that grade to get down there also. Some apparatus have to go up to the cemetery, turn around and come back down. Added response, added problems, also added traffic. The Commerce Street crossing, we know is going to impede the traffic on Columbus Avenue tremendously. You know, the traffic light, the DEP is supposed to put in on Legion Drive in Columbus. I signed those papers a long time ago. I don't know when the heck that's going to happen. I really don't. Nor do I even believe it's going to help. I really don't. The Conic State Parkway, anytime something happens in front of the dam or down by Sir John's, it backs all the way up to the bus garage on Columbus Avenue. And we in the fire department know if we can get to the firehouse, we can get to the fire. Because people will get out of the way for a fire truck. They're not going to get out of the way for a guy in his car getting to the firehouse. We're 100% volunteer, and we're trying to keep it that way. You know, we're trying to do our part with the taxes too. So these three crossings, Rich Banquet did bring up a good suggestion, I thought, was the bridge on Commerce Street. Doesn't that solve everything? Really? Lakeview Avenue, coming down Lakeview Avenue is more dangerous stopping at the railroad crossing than any of the other ones if it's in inclement weather. You know, and Cleveland Street is a big problem to us of supplying the residents down there with fire protection. That's all I have. Thank you. And
Thank
I wish we be included in these studies.
As it was stated before, we're in our infancy stages here of coming up with conceptual ideas. Everybody will be included, including the fire department. It would be irresponsible for us to design something that would make it impractical for a fire department to get in there.
I could agree with that, but these drawings already show that.
These are preliminary drawings. They're not final drawings. We're not even near that yet.
I know the NSTP is going to want everything closed. That's their easiest way out. And as other people said too, I believe it's just a terrible tragedy. My sympathy goes out to the families of everybody that was involved with that. Not only the dead, but the injured too. But it was a terrible, terrible tragedy. That it was nobody else's fault but one. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I know the commissioner wants to speak.
Yeah, good evening. It's Tony Ciancio. I'm also Fire Commissioner in Valhalla. What I wanted to ask was one of the questions there's two parts to this. First, I'll live on Lakeview Avenue. When Commerce Street closes, how much more is that going to impact the traffic on Lakeview? Because right now it's a terrible mess. Yeah. It's not a good street. You have very heavy truck traffic on the road. I know you're probably saying that you want to divert the truck traffic. I don't know how you're going to do that on the Parkway, but I mean, how much more is this going to impact Lakeview Avenue? The safety of the people that live on Lakeview is just as important as people coming in and out of this town that cross the railroad track. So you have to look out for the residents. So that's what one part of this is. How's this going to impact Lakeview Avenue? Or we don't have it?
That's been part of the discussion. It's part of the traffic study, which is an ongoing thing. We're not there yet.
Okay.
We want to restrict commercial traffic to local only.
Right. Okay, well, that's good. And we'll see when we go along how we are. If you're going to, I know you will eventually involve us in this. But second is the closing of Commerce Street. Unfortunately, the night of the accident, we were there. Tom was there. Myself. We were the first due on the scene because we were at an accident previous to that evening on Lakeview Avenue. It was an extrication. I was actually usually assigned to the ladder, but that night I was on the rescue. We were first due. We were right there. So we know what went on Commerce Street. So that was a terrific, horrible experience for us and the rest of the departments that came in. Unfortunately, it was a human error, and closing Commerce Street, and I still don't understand it, but if that's what they're going to do, that's what they're going to do. But my second concern is now Cleveland Street. We had a structure fire there a few months ago, several months ago, I should say. Any truck company, second due, third due truck companies coming into that call, and ourselves included, we can't make the turn down to that extension. I know you want to try to do something. I don't know how you're going to do this. To get down there and make the left turn to access this, then go across that paper street that you have in there already. Then when we get down to South Kensico, there is no way, and I don't care what you do, that our tower ladder can make that turn to go up High Street to access Hillside Avenue and this place there. We can't come with the ladder we have. We cannot access that through Howard Avenue coming down to Hillside, coming down that way because of that 90-degree, that turn there. It's like a 90-degree turn, plus it goes down. So we cannot access, the tower ladder is completely useless. Rescue we're getting a new one, but it's going to have, we have similar issues. The apparatus now is not what we had 30, 40 years ago. Everything's getting bigger, unfortunately. But, plus we can't buy smaller equipment because we have the whole town to cover. So we just can't worry about one area. We have to worry about everything. And with the reservation that we cover and the town itself with the new buildings going on, future buildings, we can't buy anything smaller to try to access to what we have to do. So, I know you said you were going to include us. I was hoping that we could have been informed about this earlier instead of having to come over here and saying, are you going to include us? That should be an automatic. So I'd appreciate if you do that. And we're assigned we're to take care of the people in this town. That's what they pay us for. And that's what they pay for protection. And that's where we're looking out for their interests. Not looking out for, we look out for everybody, but our main concern is the people of our village, Valhalla. So thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What happens now if you have a major event at the Cleveland Street crossing? You described to us how you can't get in there.
Yeah, we go over the railroad tracks. You can go over the railroad tracks.
Right.
Right? You can go to South Kensico. You can make a right turn, go up Hillside Avenue. High Street. We can access, but we cannot come the route you want to do and make the right turn to go up the hill. That's impossible. I don't think none of the trucks could do that. The engines may be able to come down through Howard and come down that way, but when we go, we can't do it. The ladder cannot make that turn. And like I explained to you earlier, the ladder cannot come down Howard to access Hillside Avenue because of that 90-degree downturn. It'll bottom out. So,
Okay, I think you've answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. The blue shirt.
Hello, how you doing? Mark Babick, Prospect Avenue. I've been a Valhalla resident for about 23 years. Just want to preserve the character of the town and not have any crossings closed. I never saw any violations, no problems crossing. Like they said earlier, it's a human error, and I just like to preserve the character of the town. The roads are crooked and high and all over the place. That's just the way it is. It's an old town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion? Is it possible to queue people so we could just move the meeting forward if people wanted to come up in line next? Is that possible? So we don't have the delay of people coming.
I'm trying to move my way to the back on this side, then I'll continue on this side.
Hey, good evening. Rocco Drubis. I live over in Valhalla Park. I just have some concerns. A lot of people brought up a lot of issues that I wanted to discuss. For me, This report, no disrespect to the MTA, the DOT, means nothing to me. I do not want these people to dictate to us what's going to happen in our town. We pay the taxes here. We should have a say. I'm a little surprised that this is kind of thrown up on us. A lot of people didn't know about this. I think now we got the word out. My wife travels every day down Legion Drive, has to cut through that cemetery to get over to the school. I have to leave a half hour early in the mornings to get over to 287 because of the traffic down in the village of Valhalla. By closing these crossings, you're going to create, in my opinion, more safety hazards by these vehicles coming down Legion into the town. You're better off served closing those entrances over onto the Taconic Parkway, where you got people coming in all over the place, crossing over. You can't even make a turn on those things. I mean, it's a nightmare. I stop in for coffee before I get on Metro North. The smell of the fumes of the trucks and the vehicles all standing there because they can't go straight because everybody's making a right on the Taconic. And once you get past there, you're sitting there for 20 minutes at a light. I mean, now we're going to add all this extra congestion of cars coming down Legion, closing all these traffic. You know, it's a nightmare. My wife can't make a left on Legion Drive. Now, I understand you're going to put a light there. God bless you. We've been fighting for that for years. If you're going to do that, you need a light on the other end of Legion Drive, too. That's just as bad. So if you're going to look at it, look at the big picture of what's going on in town. Now, my question is, I understand the town board has not been involved in this process. Do you plan on getting them involved in this? And the reason why I say that is we have developments coming in here, right, with extra people coming in. I understand that North Castle shoved down our throat 200 units that we didn't even know about. We don't have a say on it. They're building it, but they're going to impact our schools. They're going to be coming down here. They're going to be going over to Valhalla, into the train station. I can't imagine now adding all that on top of what we're doing here. It's going to be a nightmare. I just don't see how we can go ahead and you know, close these things right now without doing a whole full study. Environmental impact, traffic study. We got hundreds of vehicles going through this. And trust me when I tell you, every time I go over that crossing, I think of that poor lady, their family, and everything else. It was a tragedy. But things happen, and I think that was human error. Why should we have to now change all the rules at this point? You know, and Carl, all due respect, you've already said that you agree that these should be closed. You've said that in what I've seen in writing. I did a survey on on Mount Pleasant today. You said on Channel 12 News. How are you going to approach us with an open mind when you've already said that out in public? I'm concerned about that.
I'm only one vote.
But that's true. But you're the head vote. And the board, you know something, sometimes I feel rubber stamp. I'm going to call a spade as a spade. I've had people... We don't need to go there. All right? I respect you guys. I believe you have the best interest. But if the best interest is not what we publicly feel, I don't think we're going to get our way. You're going to do what you're going to want to do. I'm sorry.
This is why we're having this meeting. And just to clarify something, the state DOT and the MTA are not telling us that we have to do this. This is a joint effort to try to resolve an issue. Nothing is done. We have no plans to close any crossings yet. We are discussing it. I have my personal opinion about the crossings, yes. I've been here all my life. I know the crossings. I know that we've walked them. We've looked at the elevations and everything else. It's nothing new to me.
But if you made your mind up already, how are you going to approach us with an open mind?
We're talking to professionals. I could be totally wrong. We're going to look at this and we're going to investigate to find out the best thing to do. It's not going to be my decision.
And Mr. Jerubis,
You can call me Rocco. That's fine.
Rocco, to your point, we intend to do those studies because I think it would be irresponsible of us to just say, you know what, you're right, let's just shut it down. You know, I mean, that's Lori lives in Valhalla. I live in Hawthorne. Nick lives in. I mean, you know, we're concerned about what the impact of these things are on our communities. We recognize that people live there, so it's our responsibility to have these studies done, just like we would do if the development was coming in.
Yeah, I mean, you already have a traffic backing up over across the main one going across. What's that?
Lakeview.
Lakeview, thank you.
Okay.
You know, you can't, because people cut through there to get up to the school. You know, it's something that needs to be looked at. We need to really, you know, do all our studies on this thing and figure it out. I certainly hope that these gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen aren't driving our decision on what's going to happen in our town. We shouldn't be paying for this, not a dime. We pay a lot in taxes.
You're right about that.
And you want to know the truth? We can spend our money better spent in this town on a lot of other things.
We have no
as far as I'm
intention of
concerned.
paying for it.
And Rocco, just the other thing is that I think if you ask the other board members, I mean, you know, I mean, every one of us are entitled to our opinions, but, sorry. Every one of us, my microphone's here. Every one of us are entitled to our opinions, and Carl's entitled to his.
No, I agree.
But I'm entitled to mine, you know,
Absolutely.
and I'm not convinced yet this is the right thing to do, but that's why we have to have all of these things done, because, again, your neighborhood it's a big concern of ours. If we do something with Cleveland Street, how's that going to affect quality of life?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. My survey didn't mean anything. It's useless, okay? But for me, 3 people said they should be closed. I won't mention any names. The rest of the community said they are against it. I think you're hearing loud and clear that we're against it. We voted you people in here to represent us. I hope that you guys can do that. I have one more comment to say before I leave. If we now admit that this is a safety hazard, and we say, hey, guys, you know, we messed up, and we need to do something about this, isn't that kind of telling the people that are suing us that we screwed up here and we're negligent at this point?
No, it's not admissible.
Okay. That was a concern of mine. I said, if we're sitting here now admitting that we
It
have
was a
an issue-
concern of ours also.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. DeRubis, if I can speak, please. I do live in Valhalla, and I do that commute every single day when I get to work for Westchester County on my way. I have by no means made up my mind in regard to this. So I think people there are prejudging the board members, okay? We need to gather as much information as you do. I sit here and I listen to engineers, and I have to go home and restudy this because I am not an engineer. However, I will tell you, in my experience in healthcare, I do know emergency access, and I do know, and we've been here many a meeting and spoken about the need for emergency access throughout our town, be it volunteer firefighters or ambulance service. And that is paramount in my mind, okay? It's not about it is about convenience. However, it is more about safety. And so I'm saying on behalf of myself, I've not made up my mind. Please give us the time we need to really study this. And I won't make up my mind until I hear everything. All right? My question before, I believe to Mr. Ciancio, was in regard to safety, because I have heard from someone who is a Valhalla ambulance driver who has done it for many years. He is stating to me that it's already difficult to get into that community, and he wants to know how the changes will make it easier. If not, he would not be in favor of this. If yes, he would be in favor of this. So I will listen to that opinion and anyone else that wants to go ahead and speak to me, either here or through an email, okay? Just want to make that clear. We have not, as Mr. Rubio brought up, we're all individuals, we'll all examine the information, and then we'll make our individual decisions. Thank you.
Have any of you actually driven down Howard Street and
Yes,
seen
I
the
live
steepness
here.
of that hill?
Yes.
Okay. Because that is a
Tough
nightmare
neighborhood.
in the winter. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Chris Greco. I live on Warren Avenue since 1966. Just like that lady learned how to drive. Stop, look, and listen was the way you had to approach a train station. If the other people hadn't died, we wouldn't even be here. If just the woman that was on the tracks, because she was more concerned of her car being hit than getting off the tracks, because she got out and she's inspecting and yada yada, and she never got off. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is, as a commuter, I'm recently retired, but as a commuter, if they close the Commerce entrance, if you want to come out of Commerce onto the Taconic to go southbound, nobody's going to stop to let you out. Even if there's a light, they're going to inch into the intersection, because at times it's happened even with the other side open, and I called the cops one time because I had to wait for 4 light signals to get onto the southbound from coming out where the old Taconic Brow House used to be. Now, the other thing is, if you close it, that means people that are cutting through the cemetery have to make a right at Lakeview. God forbid if it's during rush hour when they're going 65 miles an hour, and even if you have your blinker on, you're going to have to add an access lane for a right turn because they come down there at such a high rate of speed, and even if your blinker's on, then they're just jamming on their brakes. And I've seen that happen. It's just like when you're in the town of Valhalla and somebody wants to make a left turn onto Valhalla Place, you're stuck there forever. So this is a traffic concern also. But I think this is all just a way for committees to make money because it was somebody's indiscretion that caused this, and unfortunately those innocent people died because of it, but we wouldn't be here if they hadn't. Thank you.
I'll move over to this side.
Mark D'Ambrosio, Thornwood. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. One of the rationales given for closing the crossing, whichever one's Commerce Street, what have you, is that it's dangerous. Well, obviously, any railroad crossing is dangerous if you drive in front of a speeding train. The train is going to win every time. The first gentleman said, how about we put illuminated signs that say, do not stop on tracks? Well, I think some people would agree anyone who would stop on railroad tracks deliberately probably shouldn't have a driver's license. That said, there's one issue, safety issue, I don't think was addressed, and the main reason why this tragic incident occurred, aside from the misjudgment of the lady in question, was the very freakish occurrence of the third rail piercing the head car of the train, and of course the shower of sparks that resulted from a 700-volt third rail is what caused the fire on the head car. Now, if that third rail had not broken, the SUV driver would have been the sole fatality. And I'm wondering if, from the MTA's point of view, has any thought been given to designing possibly a breakaway third rail or making any other change to the third rail design so that this event, as rare and freakish as it was, will not happen again? Give him the microphone.
Thanks. Hi, I'm David Meyer, Chief Safety Officer at the MTA. That actually was a recommendation from the MTSB that was released this summer to conduct a risk analysis of third rail systems that are in close proximity to roadways, and we're taking the MTSB's recommendation very seriously. We just last week awarded a contract to a major engineering firm, and we're undertaking that risk assessment, and the work is starting really as we speak.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Bob Stevens. I'm from Valhalla, 1 East Elm Street on the northeast corner of Columbus and Elm. I have walked up and down that hill for the last 20 years and made that crossing across Columbus Avenue, the Taconic, and the railroad track. Well, I don't go across the railroad tracks. You talk about the kids on the bus stop. This is one of the things that bothers me very much. You've got kids on the bus stop right at the corner of Columbus and Elm Street. You have other kids from Valhalla Park waiting in the parking lot. A bus has to come around, go down, make a big U-turn, come and pick them up. Their biggest danger is not crossing the tracks. It is not crossing the Taconic. It is not crossing Columbus Avenue or Cleveland Avenue. Their biggest danger is crossing the entranceway to the Metro-North parking lot, because when that light changes, those cars just go screeching up and make a left turn, and you better not be in their way when they do. And this car's trying to come out making left turns as well. And there's kind of a blockage for a while. The other thing I've also noticed is, you mentioned before about incidents on Cleveland Street. Have there actually been car-train collisions on Cleveland Street? There are?
Yes.
Okay. Were they driver error?
Yes, They weren't. Two were tractor trailers, didn't even belong there in the first place, with bottom down. Two people tried to beat the train, and two others, for whatever reason, stopped on the tracks.
Okay,
5 property damage, only in 1 injury.
okay. The other thing I noticed walking down Columbus Avenue, as somebody had mentioned before about the firehouse, yes, you really could use a traffic light right there. I believe it's North Castle has a very small fire department with a traffic light outside, and they have a switch so they can turn it red always, and they can get their trucks out there. We can do the same thing, but as he said, you would need another traffic light at the other end. The other thing is that some time ago, you took the right lane and you put this big concrete barrier at the end of it. There are 5 parking spaces right there. If you remove those 5 parking spaces and eliminate that concrete barrier and make it a right turn lane, you would eliminate a lot of the backup that goes on there on Columbus Avenue. Okay? I guess that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine Stevens, the wife, from 1 East Elm Street in Valhalla. We've been here since 1985. What talk about convenience, safety, and lack of common sense, you should be concerned about the people who choose to walk across the Taconic at Valhalla Place. There should be police over there giving those people jaywalking tickets, or do something to have a cross over the Taconic so people can walk over the Taconic to get at Valhalla Place to get closer to the entrance of the Metro North. If you do something to add more traffic backup on Legion, I'm going to take the cemetery. I'm not going to go Legion. I'm going to take the cemetery and get off at Lakeview, which I love. I like Lakeview, and I like going through the cemetery. But I drive through the cemetery instead, take Lakeview, go right through Lakeview to where my home is not too far from there. That's what I'm going to do, and I think so will many others. And there's no way to, you have to drive very slowly because most of it is a 1 lane. It's very hilly when you're in the cemetery. So you're going to have other issues that you did not anticipate because people are going to try to find other ways to get home or to their destinations. You got to put a light at Legion Drive. I can't believe we're Stevens with a B, with a PH. Bob Stevens with a V had put a notice in the paper, had asked for that. And I heard that somebody else for years had asked for that, and nothing's been done. And yet they stopped my husband and they asked, oh, you know, it's a good idea that you said about this light. The wrong Bob Stevens. But that's not the point. The point is, what's going on? There's lack of common sense for convenience and safety. Thank you.
David, do we have any update on that light?
I believe the DEP is entering contracts right now to put that work out, so it's probably about a year off.
Thank you.
I think the start of the traffic light was 2004, so there were some issues getting that approval, but then I think those issues are squared away now, and then it's now for DEP to do what they were stated they were going to do.
Hey, Scott McIntyre, South Kensco Ave is where we live, 28 years. A couple of things in terms of keeping everyone informed about what's going on. I'm sorry. This meeting was not posted until Monday. We called Monday to see if it was still on because we didn't see it. And after we called, then it was posted. So I would just ask if we could make sure that it's posted, such meetings, so everybody knows that they're going to have them.
We announced it at the last meeting that we were having.
Right, but I'm saying there's a site where you go on to see what meetings are coming up, and it wasn't posted till yesterday, so I would ask if that could be posted in a timely manner, because the last meeting was 3 weeks ago, and not everybody here was there, so it would help people.
Was there anything in the Examiner about this meeting tonight, Neil?
Yeah, there was.
Okay.
No, but there's a town website.
No, I understand that, but...
Also, last meeting, there was talk of putting up a site where we could ask questions. I don't know if that's been done or...
If there is part of there's an email that states what the report is.
No, to ask questions and get answers?
Email directly to me, and there's also paper there for it.
Okay, so there'll be no common site where people can see what the...
We will post some, we'll receive comments. So
Okay.
if we haven't received anything fishy or one thing in that tonight.
So any emails with the answers will be posted so people can see them? Okay. So that be posted on a certain site, or?
It is.
Okay. So maybe we just haven't found it. I appreciate the concern for Cleveland Ave, but I'm wondering if we've looked into ways that we can mitigate the situation there versus closing it. I will note, having lived there for a long time, there's a number of things that have occurred that have worsened the condition. The parking lot has been expanded, I think it's 2 or 3 times, which has quadrupled the number of cars from about 70 to almost 300 that go out through Cleveland. Until recently, there was not even a stop sign there until one of the residents asked for it, and the stop sign was put up, because people used to come out after they got off the train and try to, catch the light. The last expansion, we asked if it could be considered if the entrance and exit could be done down where the light is on the Parkway further south. Nothing was done. We also asked if, at that time, if you could put a stair in from Legion down to the platform, which seemed like a pretty easy thing, so people wouldn't have to cross the Parkway. Nothing was done. Years ago, there was parking added to the restaurant, in front of the restaurant, where there used to be no parking. At the time, I questioned it, and I was told by the then supervisor that no site plan approval was required to make that change. The people that park there have to back up into Cleveland Street to either go, usually they go out to the Parkway. It's crazy dangerous, because sometimes I've been caught trying to cross from Cleveland across the Parkway to go home, and I have to stop in the Parkway while somebody makes the turn. There's no parking to keep people away from the crossing gate. That is not policed. The other day, there was somebody who had parked within less than 3 feet of the crossing gate. So I would suggest that we first try to look at how we can make that intersection better and not make it worse over the years, which, it makes no sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side?
Hi, my name is Alexis. I've lived here my entire life. I know I'm young, but have you guys ever put... Oh, sorry.
What's your last name, Alexis?
Nieves.
Thank you.
I live on Legion, the blind spot. No sign says I have a driveway there. No nothing. Have you ever put counters on Legion Drive to count how many cars go up and down that street, plus trucks? Have you guys?
We have, I think Commissioner County had traffic counters.
How many?
I don't have it on me, but I can get it.
I sat at the end of my driveway, 4,000 easily, up and down Legion, not including tractor trailers and the trucks coming from the cemetery who are doing work right now. Do you know who pulled into my driveway? Because I have a long driveway. My grandparents' driveway. 7 cars. I have a 14-month-old. That's not right. Now you want to close Cleveland and put an access so you're going to back up traffic onto Legion, close Commerce, back up traffic onto Legion, and not put a light at the top of Legion. Bottom of Legion's going to get a light, but they are, right? Sorry. Are they going to get a light?
Yeah.
Anytime soon? Yeah? How many accidents have happened on top of Legion? Because of WCC. You have WCC commuter traffic. I live on Legion. I don't know how many of you live by Legion, but you can't get out on Legion. Sorry, 45 minutes to get out onto grasslands? Ridiculous. Surprised you guys are even closing crossings and only 2 cars have been crashed on the tracks in how many years? Sorry, I don't do math very well. I'm crappy at it. Sorry.
The first street was 1984.
1984. And what year is this?
2017.
Okay, when did the crash happen? 2015?
What was 2015? What was 1984?
Oh, so moronic people.
Could we have this conversation?
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out if you guys have actually counted how many more cars you're gonna put on my street. Major street at that, but you're gonna increase traffic by tenfold.
As I said before, we're in the infancy stages.
No, I
of
understand
this.
we're in the infancy stages.
The study must be done. We're going to do pedestrian
Are we
studies.
putting cops on the street too now in Legion to stop the speeding? 70, 80 miles an hour? No? I've done it. I've done it. I can say I've done it. I was stupid. I was 20. I've done it.
The chief of police is right here. Please
Oh,
come outside.
sorry. I'm 27 now. I'm a child. I'm not stupid anymore. But
You said your address was again? No,
I have no problem, guys. But you got WCC, 19, 18, 17-year-olds coming down, going down Legion. Please, I know you guys are going to do studies, but really look into how many people you're adding onto Legion by this access road and closing the crossings. That's all I have to say. Sorry for taking your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address before we close this?
Hi, I'm Ellen Bundown. I live on Cleveland. Don't close it. But that's not my question. My question is, you said you're going to have a little bit of an access where some commercial trucks are going to be able to get onto the parkway if you close Commerce? Was that what I heard?
No, we had a discussion about that, whether it would be even possible, but that's not.
That's not going to happen, where no commercial vehicles will be allowed on
No, we
this.
didn't think that would ever work, no.
Okay. If you close Commerce and if you close Cleveland, Legion is going to be like the only way you're going to get from here to the Westchester Medical Center?
No.
Lakeview maybe, that's just Lakeview and Legion.
There's a number of
No,
roads that.
Lakeview and Legion.
Possibly also in Hawthorne.
That's Hawthorne, I'm talking about Valhalla.
No, I'm aware of that, but I'm saying to get up
no,
to the medical center.
Do you live in Valhalla?
I do not.
No.
but I know it well.
Anybody live in Valhalla? I do. Oh, you do?
You asked the question if there was any other access up to
Yeah,
the medical
but
center.
it's
so I'm
not,
answering the
it's
question.
not, it's not.
It
So
is.
that's Hawthorne, so you're going to have an emergency vehicle go all the way up to
I'm actually
Hawthorne?
supporting your concern by saying that because it affects greater parts of the town.
Okay, I'm just concerned if you close all these accesses, we have no way to get up there unless you go through two streets, which will be heavily trafficked, heavily. Cars will be stopped, admissions will be going into the air, people live on that street. I mean, we have to think of the health of the people, too.
That's why a traffic study is very important.
I know, that light is, we really weren't notified much about that light that everybody decided to put in. So by putting in that light, it's just going to make it worse. You really have to think about this, really. I lived here for 57 years, so I know what I'm talking about. So please, do not just go ahead and say, okay, we're going to do it.
We're not.
It doesn't seem that way.
Our Assemblyman, Mr. Tom Abernathy, would like to address.
Good evening. Good evening. I, first of all, want to compliment you on raising the issue with the public. I'm not sure how far along you are with your plans, but the whole concept of having a discussion about public safety at railroad crossings is really very important. I'm not going to take a position on any of these because my feeling is DOT should be making recommendations. We've had some discussions. They're now promising us that we'll get those recommendations soon. But we passed legislation a couple of years ago, which I was hoping would give us a basis for discussion on improving safety in all of our communities, because there are lots of different options. Obviously, there's the option of closing a railroad crossing, but there's also the option of some kind of an overpass or an underpass. There's the option of reconfiguring crossings. It might cost some money, but you could possibly reconfigure some of these so they become much safer. Maybe you can reconfigure an approach to the crossings. So it might take some money, but you might be able to straighten out a road or make it wider or put the cameras in or whatever. I know you have a proposal for certain cameras. You might be able to improve signage, but there's lots of different things to do. One of them may be to close some roads. But also, I think one of the things to do is to talk about what's it going to cost to build some kind of a bridge over it, or these other options. So I appreciate your raising the discussion, but I'm also anxiously awaiting the study from DOT. And then if we find DOT doesn't answer all of the questions, sending it back to them and saying, okay, take another look at it. So I appreciate your raising the topic. I think it's really important that we get people talking about it, that we get suggestions from the community, and I'd like to see all of the different ones. There are ways of perhaps dealing with approach to these intersections for emergency vehicles different than for the regular commuters, or doing it differently during commuting time than you do for the rest of the day. There's all kinds of different options, and I'm hopeful that DOT is going to address some of these, not just in this community, but throughout the entire state. And I know that's a tall order, but I'm hoping to see that. So thank you for raising the discussion here tonight, and I'm looking forward to having another discussion after we get a report from DOT.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is George Caldy. I live on Fox Hill Road in Valhalla. I'm glad that all my neighbors have spoken already. They pretty much addressed all the questions that I wrote down on my pad. But there's one thing I haven't heard, although Tom just hinted at it a moment ago, and that is the possibility of a bridge on Commerce Street. Right now, the town of Newcastle is petitioning for a bridge at Roaring Brook Road. I believe that's Newcastle, and I'm pretty sure it's probably going to come to pass. I really think if the state of New York can afford to build a bridge in Newcastle, they can afford to build a bridge here in Mount Pleasant as well. We all pay the same tax dollars. And the reason why I'm proposing the bridge is because I hate to see roads closed. These grade crossings are not just grade crossings, they're roads in our community. We need this. And if I was Tony Ciancio living on Lakeview, I'd be quaking in my boots right now if all the traffic is going to be pushed over from Commerce Street onto Lakeview. So I really would like the people who are working on these reports, if this is truly a preliminary hearing, to please consider putting a bridge on Commerce Street. There's plenty of right-of-way on both sides of the road there. Maybe you may have to relocate a burial site or two, perhaps. I don't know. But I think it's in the realm of possibility. So please make the effort not to close the roads, keep them open, put a bridge if you have to. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is this just to discuss the closing right now, or I'm allowed
Yes.
to speak I can speak at the end of the meeting then?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure that from...
This gentleman here, did you want to speak? Oh, okay.
Do you want to bring him? Do you want to bring him a mic?
Joe Soroselli, Valhalla. Yes, TV is a wonderful thing. I was watching at home, and I just wanted to pass a comment. I listened to a lot of what was said. There's a lot of comments and all, but I haven't heard a lot of any other ideas, any alternatives. One of the major things that I've always thought of, why can't we create an entrance to the Valhalla station or the parking lot at the south end directly across from the Kensico light? Will eliminate a tremendous amount of the traffic that goes across Cleveland Street right then and there. Instead of trying to force everybody off at Cleveland Street, put an entrance at the light, other end. Second question, Other side of the street, let's take into account all the individuals that traditionally come across from the neighborhood on the opposite side of the tracks, and then a lot of them will park in Valhalla's parking lot. To the left-hand side, and I'm not going to name the streets, I don't know all the streets or anything else, but to the left-hand side, there's a tremendous amount of land. Some of it may look like wetland. I've driven by it, I had my kids in the school and all, but how come there is no consideration of possibly putting additional parking on the opposite side of the tracks to eliminate people from leaving the neighborhood and being forced to come across and go out through Legion Drive? These are ideas. There are some, opinions of whether or not it should be closed, should not be closed. I always thought it was an extremely unsafe crossing, even when the kids were going to, playing baseball down there. But you have to talk about alternatives and ideas, not necessarily just say, hey, this is what we're going to do. The idea of putting an entrance directly across, putting an entrance to the parking lot will stop a tremendous number of accidents, a tremendous number of rear ends that take place on the street. And it physically can be done. We're not crossing the water at that point. Water has moved, and even if we had to cross the stream, it's an easy way to conduit, to put up a conduit. But we'll have a traffic light. We're moving the traffic away from the village. Big, big factor. All the individuals coming down from North White will never enter the village. Big factor. That'll eliminate all the traffic that builds up to that, make that left-hand turn to get into the Valhalla station. You have to talk about ideas that may work, or good ideas, not necessarily just say, hey, this is what's, in quotes, being forced down our throats. Let's talk ideas. Let's not talk about that. And yes, now I have to run back home because I left the front door of the house open.
I think actually, Mr. Sorcelli, David, at one point, did we look at that? Exiting, I'm speaking to David Smith, the guy behind you. So,
We did preliminary look at it, and that was in regard of just for help. The crossing was also just to alleviate traffic there. There is some wetlands on that area. I mean, we could come up with a conceptual plan and a cost, but that would be a cost that would be borne by the town itself.
Yep. That's what I was talking about.
It goes back to, it doesn't necessarily have to be borne by the town if it's not approved by the town. Thank you.
It's not true.
My name is Colin Rim. I'm a new resident to the town, been here about 5 months, and I wanted to share a couple of comments about the Cleveland Street crossing. The first comment is, have you considered putting the pedestrian bridge at the current crossing location to preserve access both to the train station and also to downtown? I think putting the pedestrian crossing further up the road will limit access to the town, the restaurants, the businesses, and also to the dam. I think that's something that should be looked into. My second comment is, I think for the residents who live on Kensico Avenue, we need some assurances that the street will have access for emergency vehicles and be safe to access in the snow. I think it would be great if we could have a field trip or something where people come by and actually walk around with people who live there. I think that would be really valuable, and I'd volunteer myself to attend. I could even bring my dogs if they're welcome. And lastly, I had a third comment, but I forgot. Oh, sorry. I don't know the process that the town uses, but I really urge you to use an independent process. Do not rely on MTA, do not rely on town engineers. I'm sure they do a great job, but it's very, very important that this not be done within a closed system. You need outside people coming in who have no conflict of interest, who can give an independent assessment of the best engineering solution and can account for unintended consequences. The issue here is unintended consequences. If we have an access road that's not safe and people are sliding down it, that's no better than crossing a railroad crossing. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Did you come? I thought I saw you back there.
Laura Senti, 27 Hillside Avenue. I'd like to know where we're going from this meeting, how you plan on addressing the concerns that are raised here? Will the DOT and MTA be at future meetings? Will they answer questions regarding the potential of closing these crossings? How will the people in the town be notified? I did not see anything on the website. I saw David's report on the website 2 weeks ago at the public meeting. I asked you to put it up as where David's report is on that same page, and I looked today, I did not see anything on the website.
David's report wasn't there?
No, David's report's there, but there was nothing about this meeting on the website. And there's nothing in this week's Examiner. And to be honest with you, I went around to part of the neighborhood and posted signs to remind people to come out. But I think it's incumbent upon the board and the town to get some vehicle to notify the residents so that they can come, because there's still people out there that do not know this is happening. Because if they're not tuned into the television or they didn't see it in the paper, and they could be affected. The number of houses we're talking about that are directly affected in Cleveland Street in that specific area is over 66 houses. South Kensico, Upland Drive, Hillside, Howard, High Street. Those are the folks that are immediately impacted by this potential closing. And I guess the other question I have, and I don't know if the MTA can answer this, is that both Commerce Street and Cleveland Street, the boxes haven't been, there's been no painted boxes there, whereas in Lakeview it has. So I was just curious why that hasn't been done. There's no preemption at Lakeview or Cleveland, as far as I know. There is at Commerce Street. Why are we not doing those improvements now to protect the safety? Closing the tracks is what we say is the safest thing. But I think there's things that should be done at this point to improve the safety at these crossings. And I was just wondering if, I don't know if they can answer that or if there's plans. But I know I had called the MTA 6 months ago and asked them why the boxes hadn't been painted on Cleveland Street, and I didn't get a response.
So some of the stuff that you're seeing out there on the streets is kind of a work in progress. We painted in conjunction with DOT some don't block the box style markings to try to see if that would improve the queuing on the tracks. It's still a work in progress. The study is still ongoing, so we really haven't decided whether or not that's an effective treatment based on the data. As far as preemption goes, you mentioned some intersections that are not preempted and others that are. That's all kind of a part of this mix. Obviously, more preemption may be necessary if crossings are not closed. If crossings are closed, then preemption may not necessarily be necessary if they were going to be closed quickly. So all of this is in the mix, and it's certainly something that we're working on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm Glenn Hayden from Metro North. I'm Vice President of Engineering. We're actually in design right now of the preemption for Lakeview. So our schedule is to design that, work with the DOT to get that installed, and then go to Stevens.
And what about Cleveland? I mean, are we talking at all about Cleveland?
We're waiting to see what happens here to decide whether or not it's still a crossing, and then if it is, needs preemption.
I just want to also add that right now, just to interpret that, is that because FRA and also MUTCD requires that intersections within 200 feet of a crossing are interconnected, and just want to let you know that right now there's no interconnection at Cleveland Street, and should there be an interconnection, and when those traffic gates go down, it's basically going to put the entire intersection in red and clear out the driveway. So with the possibility of having that done, there's probably going to be some more traffic issues there, because there will be a clearance requirement in order to standardize that intersection.
But I guess my question question is that if it is a safety issue, if Cleveland Street is such a safety issue, why are we not going ahead and doing that? I mean, okay, we're going
I
to stop
say-
the traffic. People have to wait a few more minutes, but it clears the crossing. And if the crossing is the issue, and it is so dangerous, why aren't we doing it?
The question is, I believe, I'm not sure why that's not progressing right now. I mean, we could have a meeting and talk about looking at doing those improvements as we are proceeding forward with entertaining the crossings. We will have a discussion now after this meeting. As far as will that prevent a collision, it will assist. However, part of our analysis was people who are trying to beat the crossing. We were actually, just to inform people, we were out there doing an investigation on Commerce Street with a uniformed police officer, and 2 vehicles went around the gates while we were there. So we're not going to prevent, and that's with the town forces there at the same time, and a police presence. So we're not going to prevent people from going around the gates or through the gates if they choose to do so. That's, of course, driver error, and it's hard to design for that. But there will be, like I said, we will have discussion on looking at preemption error. My opinion on that is that the traffic is probably going to be, if you do add another 20 seconds 4 or 5 times in the AM and PM peak where that intersection is at a standstill, there's probably going to be more traffic impacts in the downtown area.
Okay, and an additional question that I would have is, since the crossings are such an issue now, and in the Valhalla station, it was mentioned before, 60% of the trains coming or stop at the Valhalla station that go through up to Brewster to Grand Central. Is there provisions to slow those trains down at these crossings? And if not, why not? If we're concerned about drivers going onto the tracks or making stupid errors, then why are we not slowing the trains down at the crossings until some workarounds can be done as far as the crossings? And like I said, most of those trains coming in and out of Valhalla at Cleveland Street are stopping. The other question I have is, we talked about $13 million, and we say that the town is not going to pay for any of that. But as taxpayers, I'm assuming we're paying for it anyway. The DOT is funded through taxpayer dollars. We may not be paying at the same level, but bottom line, we're still paying, the residents are still paying for these improvements if they're to be done. And the other issue is the question about the overall traffic study. It was brought up in July or in April of 2015 about making the entrance to the parking lot down in front of the Kensico Dam. If that requires the county to be involved, then my recommendation is that we do a traffic study that involves the DOT, the county, the town. We do a comprehensive traffic study, not only regarding the railroad crossings, but regarding the development that's being done in town, and a projection as to where we're going with this traffic so that the traffic can flow through this community in a reasonable way. As I said at the previous board meeting, we have each one of these new developments coming up, and traffic studies done, it's gone before the planning board, and it's no impact, or it's minimal impact. But we as the residents see the impact. We're the ones that are waiting to get through the village of Valhalla. It's affecting the businesses in the village of Valhalla. So I think that it has to be a comprehensive, and all parties need to be involved. It can't be just the town doing it as part of their master plan, or the county doing it, or the state doing it. It's something that should be done together so that it's comprehensive. And then my final question is where are we going from here? Is there going to be another meeting scheduled? How are we going to be notified?
I was going to address that when you were completed.
Okay, thank you.
In wrapping this up, if the board would like, I would like to continue this to a next public hearing so we can get other people that may have want to give their input into this. It's very important for us to get the input. I just want to say on a personal level, this is not something that I had seeked out that I wanted to address. We have the situation we have to look at. We're trying to be responsible. This is not an enjoyable thing for us to sit here and be criticized because we're looking at trying to make something safer. Our concern is the safety of our community, not to make your lives miserable. So please don't get the impression that this is something we really look forward to doing, but we do have to address it. And it's most important for us to get your input. That's why we're here. Not only tonight, you can email our town engineer with your comments. You can send me an email. We're going to take all this into consideration on what we're going to do. It may come back to us that this may not be the right thing to do. So until we compile all this information, we're not going to make any decision. We're not being pressured by the DOT or the MTA to do this. But it's something that if we do decide to do it, we have to do it in concert with them, or it won't go anywhere. So just be assured that this is not over tonight. It may not be over at the next meeting, but you're welcome to tell your friends and neighbors at our next public meeting. We will continue this conversation, and your voice will be heard. So thank you for your input tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next public meeting.
Mr. Chairman, will we have any input from the honorable members from the MTA, DOT, or New York State? Is there anything that they could share or add to?
I mean, if I may, actually, I did want to make a comment or some takeaways from tonight. First of all, thank you to everyone, all the residents who came out tonight. It is so important to inform us. I wish every town board meeting was this packed, but it is important to inform us. Thank you to the members of the different agencies that came out. Thank you, David, for your very comprehensive study and report. There are some takeaways. I think after tonight, I probably have more questions than I did before coming into tonight. I think that there were some really good suggestions made. I, for one, would absolutely like to see some alternative plans presented, so if that can be considered in this process, I would appreciate that. I would also like to see a strong level of consideration given to the emergency services in this town in part of this planning. I think that's important. And the last piece, and I know this has been brought up in piecemeal, and some people actually did bring it straight out, is that traffic studies are often done in close proximity to the sites that are being affected. You know, it might be some of the main arteries that are affected, and it might be within a few square miles of the project. Our town is a popular place, and a lot of people do want to develop here, and what I am seeing personally is that traffic studies in isolation are worthless. And I think it is really important that when we make any kind of consideration of changes, road closures, road additions, developments, that an entire town traffic study needs to be completed. We need to look at the exits and entryways of the entire town at all angles and all ends, because every little change to a traffic pattern not only affects the immediate area, it affects the greater area as well. So I would just ask that the different agencies, while you're making considerations, that you consider those following points. Thank you.
I'd like to just add to that in regard to emergency services. I see some members here that are in the Valhalla Ambulance Corps. I'd like to see Valhalla, as well as WIMS, which is Westchester Emergency Medical Services. There are other ambulance service. I'd like to see them present also, because I want to know what the access is in and out of the neighborhood that would be isolated if we go ahead with some of these plans. Again, as I said before, this is, quote, not a done deal, in my opinion, for me. I won't speak for anyone else. But again, we need more information, and certainly safety and a presence from the fire departments and the ambulance services needs to be present at the time we continue discussions. Thank you.
So I'd like to, again, just readdress whether there be any input from the honorable members. I know many of them came a long way. One of my questions would be, I think you mentioned responded partially to it, was what type of studies being done by the DOT and the MTA currently? I think one of them you said is in progress, or along with the assembly bill that was mentioned before. Is the MTA doing any studies as well, or any further studies regarding this? Because this is three, it's trilateral, basically, what we're looking at here. Us, DOT, and MTA, correct?
Correct.
All right.
So hopefully you can hear me. This is a partnership. We are not coming in here and telling you what to do. The report that the Assemblyman is referring to, we are working jointly with the MTA on. I'm going to basically tell you an answer, and you need to trust us when I say we have not done any studies related to any of these alternatives that are presented tonight. These are concepts. There have been no engineering done. There have been no studies to support the viability. This is to get a dialogue going and to have a community-wide discussion. No more has been done. And we won't do any more until we figure out what the path forward may be, regardless of what decision is ultimately made, because that would defeat the whole purpose of having your input.
So it's my understanding that you would like us to take the lead on this.
Well, I mean, basically, the town owns basically the roadways, and we are here to provide technical expertise on highways, on bridges, on rail crossings, on railroads. But ultimately, the town would have to make a decision in terms of how it would like to proceed.
So part of the questions that were presented here may, determine what that decision will be. So for instance, the MTA, the breakaway, third rail, improvements to, that you mentioned, some of them are in progress, but they're not in progress for Cleveland. Is there a way of getting the scope of what possible alternatives can be considered? I know you haven't done any engineering designs, but at least to get a scope of what is possible.
We can do that, yes. And I think what we're hearing, we're kind of mixing, excuse the metaphor, apples and bowling balls. Because there are some studies that we're doing, system-wide to look in different locations to see what may work, what may not work. So we have not done it at every crossing in this community. We may have done one in Syracuse, we may have done one on Long Island to test it in different environments. But we're looking at those at a much more systematic approach. The same thing, and I don't want to speak for third rail, but the same thing there is that's more of a systematic approach. When you get down to the community level, you have to get down to location-specific alternatives. And that's what we're trying to understand here today and in the future when you have additional public meetings.
As a result of this accident, have you looked at any other, has there been any other studies? One was mentioned in Newcastle, or any other requests for road closures from any other municipalities?
I'm not aware, I'm actually personally not aware of, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, about the Newcastle issue. I am not aware of any other crossing closure requests.
Or overpass or alternative?
I'm not personally aware.
Okay.
The one I'm aware of is the Roaring Brook Road one that was mentioned earlier. That's just a request for grade-separated interchange. And
That's
it's only a request right now.
That's Roaring Brook that goes over the Sawmill River Parkway, is that correct?
It doesn't go over it right now, it's at grade.
I understand that, but the request would be to go over that parkway. Okay, and my understanding is that is 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south, correct?
It's a request for an interchange, not just a bridge over right now.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it's a very informal request. It's just been brought to the DOT's attention. This would be a desired aspect of that location.
Well, I think as our communities are affected or interconnected, and we have some of the same issues with railroad crossings, that yes, our community is very aware of the informal request. So I do think we do have to address that at some point.
And I think part of the point of studying a location-specific issue is that what may work in one community, it could be, you're limited geographically in terms of what you can do in terms of right-of-way or other things. Not everything is cookie cutter.
Cookie cutter.
It's a list, it's got a lot of it. But my point is that that's why we actually have walked the tracks, we've walked the roadways, we've been to the cemetery to understand the traffic flows. We haven't done studies, but we have physically walked every inch of the area to get a sense of what is actually happening. And we do find, unfortunately, at the end of the day, it said this, we can't engineer our way out of people doing things that, perhaps are not, in the spirit of Darwin. But having said that, we are trying to work with the town to provide, based on our expertise, what might make sense. It may not make sense for you, and you may, give us additional alternatives. We're just trying to provide advice, counsel, and guidance.
What would it take for to get to that point where we can look at alternatives from your perspective, your point of view, or get input, or as part of the process.
Well, I think it's very helpful for us to continue to hear the public comments.
Mhm.
There are a number of things that have been mentioned tonight which are intriguing, and I'm hoping the next meeting will bring out additional ideas.
Thank you.
My wife and daughter tell me every day, I don't have all the best ideas, trust me.
Okay. Okay, I think that's really important to hear. Thank you.
I just have a couple quick questions. How old are these crossings, David?
I'll get you actual dates, but I believe Commerce Street is 1894, maybe. And I believe that, I know I have a road map of Commerce Street, I believe it's 1910, and the alignment's the same as it is today. So they were in existence before the invention of vehicles. So they were probably horse and buggy roads at the time.
What about Cleveland Street?
Cleveland, not 100% sure because there were some modifications to the train station there, but I will get you that information.
Okay. And then, you know, what I like to see too is that at least in the interim, because this is going to, I assume, take a long time to figure out. This is not, these solutions or whatever the decision is, it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. In the meantime, we have immediate issues like at Cleveland Street, as Ms. Senti mentioned. So I'd like to try and see if we can get some cooperation to try and work on those issues short term. So that way we can avoid any, you know, another tragedy while we try and figure out what the more long-term solution is. So, but thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
And again, thank you to our residents. We appreciate your time. We will continue this public information meeting on November 14th. You're all welcome to join us. Thank you.
Is that when we have a public hearing for the budget too?
That's a preliminary budget, which Marie is supposed to, should be delivering to Pat, and we go get it and review it.
Take five? Yeah. Take five.
We'd like to continue our town board meeting. We have a lot of issues to cover tonight.
All the crossings are compliant.
You're the writer.
Yes.
They were built,
Michael, how are you? Give me
they were built to grade.
my site also. I've seen it. Well, that's one of the issues.
Oh, thank you.
We'll be fine.
Remember they built to grade,
Or when they approved to grade.
Can we move on here?
Yes.
I'll have to get some more.
Thank you, guys. Okay. Can you,
Mount Pleasant website.
you can always, I can email you. You got it.
I'll get some more information.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Very good. Thank you, Michael. Hi, Chris. We're keeping you up late.
I'd like to move on to the supervisor's report. The first thing on our report is we had a developer come to us about the possibility of building a luxury car storage facility. This is where the Taconic Bra House was once located, between the cemetery and the Taconic State Parkway. The board has decided that we would send this to the planning board to get their thoughts on this before we move forward with anything. So this resolution will recommend this car storage facility to be referred to the planning board.
So moved. Just I'd like to add that this is was last a Mexicali restaurant, just for reference to some of the residents.
Oh, and before that, I believe it was an Italian restaurant, so it's kind of had a lot of history. Spadafino's, yes. Thank you, Pat. It's had a lot of history as a restaurant. Guess that's not working out too well there. So when we ask people to think outside of the box, this is certainly something that came outside of the box. It'll be interesting to see how it progresses.
Are you seconding?
I will go ahead and second this.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Ms. Smoley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves forward. Second item, referred zoning petition for an assisted living application to the planning board. This application is for 6 Liberty Street in Hawthorne. We have discussed this for probably the past year. Now it's going to be referred to the planning board for their suggestions.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Rubio.
May I take a minute, please? Mr. Supervisor and Mr. Rubio, I do not believe it's for assisted living.
No, that's senior housing. You're
Senior
right.
housing, thank you.
Right.
And with that correction, I will go ahead and second that. Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Rubio, second by Ms. Smoley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is to call for a public hearing on November 14th, 2017, to adopt a tentative 2018 budget. As on Monday, the budget will be given to our town clerk, and copies will be given to the town board to review. That's the first step in the process.
Tentative budget.
Tentative, what'd I say?
Nothing. You just said budget.
Okay. Adopt a tentative 2018 budget.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Rubio.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the award the cleaning and maintenance bid to Apple Maintenance. That's our present provider for cleaning of Town Hall. This is a 2-year contract of $64,680, which is $32,340 per year, a monthly payment of $2,695, beginning November 1st, 2017, and ending October 31st, 2019.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo.
Second.
Second by Ms. Smoley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of a request for a refund. This is from our Superintendent of Water and Sewer and Town Engineer, Mr. David Smith. We've heard from this evening on a few occasions. There's a fee that was charged for tapping, which was not required to be performed. The only charge would be for the meters. So the refund would be for a total of $1,604.55. Two separate, yeah. For each account. That's $1,604.55 per each account.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy,
Second.
second by Mr. Rubio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is authorization to hire Shalene Jago as assessment assistant at an annual salary of $63,807, effective October 30th, 2017. This was sent to the CSEA membership for approval. They had approved this position and in the grade that we had discussed.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is authorization to increase Nicole Tedesco's hours from 17.5 hours to 25 hours per week. Her position title, Office Assistant, Automated Systems, an hourly rate of $15.80, effective October 25th, 2017. The LJ3 form has been approved by Westchester County and our Human Resource Department.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rubio. All in favor?
On the question, so we have this approved, Westchester County Human Resources, it's all, we've received it back already?
No.
Okay. Aye.
Next item. Accept the resignation of Police Officer Joseph Alfiero, effective October 20th, 2017.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Rubio. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Nay.
opposed?
Nay.
Excuse me?
Nay.
You're not opposed to it?
I'm opposed.
You are opposed to it? Okay. Mr. McCarthy does not approve of it. Motion carries. This next item is a correction of a resolution 532-72. Read the annual salary for Jeremiah Johnson to be $66,646 per year, effective October 18, 2017. The salary was incorrect. The old contract had stated a lower amount. This is what the new contract states.
Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rubio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Request from our engineering department to dispose of a scanner, Dell tower, HP tower, and HP design jet plotter. I believe this equipment is considerably old and outdated and not working also.
Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rubio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Authorization for Mid-Westchester Lawn Service to maintain train station parking lots. We've discussed this quite a bit about making sure that our commuter lots are maintained properly. This agreement, we discussed this last year too, but we never went forward with it. Monthly service price is $1,000 for all the lots. Spring cleanup price would be $2,000. That's a one-shot for all the lots after the winter. It probably will not be a 12-month cleanup. It may end up being like 10 months. But this will authorize the monthly price of $1,000 and a spring cleanup price of $2,000.
Did a full cleanup, so.
Yeah, I know they just recently cleaned it, yeah.
I'd like to
This is
make-
the company that presently does a lot of our maintenance in town, for the town.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize Midwestchester Lawn Service, not Law Service, by the way, for 10 months, plus their spring and fall cleanups.
Okay, authorization for Midwestchester Lawn Service to maintain train station parking lots for a 10-month period, and also the $2,000 for spring cleanup. Motion by Mr. DiPaolo.
Second.
Second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is purchase order number 18353 for Craft Carpet, new carpet tile for Police Records Secretary's Office. It's been in disrepair for quite a long time. Total for the purchase order is $3,000.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Rubio.
Second.
Second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is purchase order 18355, Dennis Adams Contracting and Roofing. This is a new roof for the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce building. This is the old Thornwood train station building, which is the town's responsibility to maintain. Total for this, there was 3 prices. This was the lowest price, $6,900.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy.
Second.
Second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next item is a block party request from Lauren Holland on Saturday, October 28th, with a rain date of Sunday, October 29th, in the cul-de-sac of Beverly Road and Hawthorne.
Move for approval.
Motion by Ms. Smalley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rubio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This item from our town engineer, David Smith, is requesting that the Zappico Point Place subdivision, a performance bond reduction. Town of Mount Pleasant is holding an irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of $175,000. The developer has requested the letter of credit be reduced to from $175,000 to $73,319. The department concurs with this request, as the remaining balance will be sufficient to complete the work if needed. It is recommended that the town board approve the reduction of the performance bond in lieu of the irrevocable letter of credit to $73,319.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rubio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is change the work session date of Tuesday, November 7th, which is Election Day, to Wednesday, November 8th, 2017.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy.
Second.
Second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The last item is our investment report. Our current rate of interest is 0.70%. Move on to business from the floor at this time. Anyone who wishes to address the board is welcome to do so.
Laura Senti, I just have 2 quick things. I know that you've just installed the security on the doors in the front. Is there any override on that? Because the other night when I came for the IDA meeting, I couldn't get in. Is there any intercom there to be buzzed in, or do you have to go through the police department? Is that the only way to get back in?
I, myself, or the building inspector could control that. I mistakenly did not put the right time in there for it to open. I can now do it from my phone now, so it's a lot easier. So I actually did it on the way over here. I had to make sure the doors were open for the TOT and MTA people to get in here. So
Okay, so
it's a lot easier to do now.
Okay.
But I'll make sure that, there's going to be a schedule made up where it's going to open for like planning board, zoning board, architect review board, so people can get in here without having to worry. It's a security thing. We're in a different world today. We have to be careful.
No, I understand. I know it's new, so I just was wondering, because I had called down to the police department. I thought they might be able to do something, but
Now,
apparently
they only control their doors downstairs.
Okay. And the only other question I have is there's a memo tonight under the Highway Department as far as roads that don't appear on the Westchester County Town of Mount Pleasant inventory. Is that inventory listed anyplace? Is that accessible through the website, or is that?
I don't know if it's on the website, but I know they have it down at Highway Department.
Okay, and why wouldn't the road be listed on there?
There's various reasons. And if you look at, there's such small portions of road too, that over the years, various different reasons. If you have a specific road and you have a question, I can find out for you, but it's not just one answer for that.
All right, but I can call the Highway Department and ask them.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks very much.
There was also a reclassification of certain types of roads. They used to measure a road a certain way. Now a cul-de-sac is measured a different way. So it created some confusion there, but it's a little more accurate now.
And I guess I just have a question. Do you do just partial roads in the town? Are there sometimes partial roads that are?
Yeah, especially as you get close to like other parts, like Pleasantville and such, sometimes they may have a portion of a road and we share the other portion of the road.
Okay, but if it's totally in the town of Mount Pleasant, if part of the road is?
You're talking about like Valhalla?
Yeah.
So the Mount Pleasant proper?
Right.
And what, part of it's private?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
that's very possible. It could be, there are some private roads that could be partially maintained by the town and partially private.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to let you know, you have the Westchester Law Service doing the parking lots in here.
I corrected it.
We corrected it. Thank you. This is in regards to town business?
Yes, it is. It's town business. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's well.
Explain to us why this is town business.
You'll hear it while I'm
No,
speaking.
please.
I don't have to explain why it's town business. I'm going to explain it while I'm reading it. No, you don't get to say.
I actually do.
No, you don't.
You're entitled to speak on town business.
This is town business.
Explain to us.
This
why,
is
please.
town business, and I have permission to speak.
She has 5 minutes, let her explain.
Exactly.
And we'll
So
decide
stop it.
what to do with it.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Thank you, Mr.
What I'm
McCarthy.
asking for is an explanation as to
The evil that permeates the world today is so corrupt and perverse that there's no other way that this sick absurdity can be mended other than an intervention from God and Christ. Amen. The swamp just won't drain when the evil men have their dirty and treasonous hands taking bribes and turning a blind eye to injustice and corruption, which is the norm nowadays, selling you into bondage to foreign corporations while pretending to serve the public. By deceiving you with their false and fraudulent legislation, they are able to steal from you, impoverish you, oppress you, and con you. Politicians, police, and the courts aren't helping humanity but harming them by using this false legislation, and disobeying God and those that follow man rather than God leads to your own enslavement, to protect the wealthy criminals who are profiting off your sweat equity, and that goes for man, woman, and child because they don't play favorites in this area. To them, you're just another useless eater. They all serve mammon while feeding the beast system and lining there in their friends' pockets. Matthew 23:26. The blind politician, clean first that which was in the cup and the platter, and that the outside might be clean also. Woe unto the lawyers and the politicians, hypocrites! For you like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but inside are full of dead men's bone and filthiness. Even so you outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. In Deuteronomy 4:2, God prohibits man from making up his own laws and diminishing from the laws he commands. The legislative branch here in the States and the monarch in Britain cannot make personal gains, nor their own economic policies, nor their own laws known as legalese, which is different from lawful.
The laws have already been laid down by God, the ruler of the universe, and given to Moses, that if we obey, we might live, and if not, it is certainly death. You better think about that, all you. The courts and the judges and the lawyers sit in Moses' seat, disobeying God. Thou shalt not judge is a commandment that Jesus brought to us, as well as to love one another as I have loved you. Christ has said people falsely claiming to be judges must repent and swear allegiance to God, the ruler of the universe, or spend eternity in the hellfire. Okay? Along with those helping them, including those sitting on the fence. You have no authority to judge anyone, nor to decide any matter. The bar associates and judges sworn allegiance to a criminal usurper of the crown, Queen Elizabeth, who is falsely claiming to be a queen, therefore committing fraud, which vitiates everything. Those, okay? Right? Judges and lawyers, oaths are ultra-virus, null and void. No man can judge his own cause or a cause to which he is party to. That automatically rules out all crown employees. The Queen swore to uphold the laws of God at her coronation oath. She is the head of the Bar Association and the richest woman on the planet, crowned upon a fake stone, and hides the true identity of the British people and the Americans, by the way, who are the true Israelites and the 10 lost tribes. So she can keep her obscene wealth that she has stolen from you. Ezekiel 21:26. Thus said the Lord I am, remove the diadem, the sovereignty, and take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Exalt him that is the low line of Judah Zara, and abase him that is the high line of Judah Perez. Pay attention. I will overturn it, and it shall not be overturned until he whose right it is, and I will give it to him. Shiloh, Christ. Genesis 49:10. The first overturn was from Judah Perez in Jerusalem to Judah Zara of the Red Hand at Tara County, Royal Meath, Ireland. The second overturn was from Tara to Scotland and Fergus the Great. The third overturn from Scotland to England with Edward I Longshanks. The fourth and final overturn started in 1950 when 4 Scottish nationals removed the Stone of Destiny from Westminster Abbey and took it, fulfilling Christ's own prophecy to his apostle John in Revelation 22:16. These things I, Jesus, send my angel to testify to you in the communities. I am the root source and the successor and the bright morning star. Christ has come to set up his kingdom and reinstate God's perfect royal laws of liberty and make the whole world into God's kingdoms. God's laws are just and true, unlike man's Babylonian Talmud legislation, which oppresses man and keeps the wealthy in business. This whole Babylonian racket system is coming to an end. You must turn away from politics and religion, which are satanically inspired, and turn to the Lord before it's too late for you. As in the days of Noah, so too shall the coming of the Son of Man be. What that means is Christ explained in his second coming now that nobody believed Noah when he was building the ark and told men to go back to God and take heed of the flood. And now only a very small percentage believe Christ today, which means that a very small amount of people will be helping him. We're in World War III now. The 7 angels are 7 time periods.
Thank you. Your time is up. Your time is up. You're 5 minutes. Thank you.
He's allotting his 5 minutes. Yes, yes, it is. Yes, you did. You did it last week. You did it with other people, and I'm putting my foot down. You have to do it for me too. You can't do it for who you want to do it for, and not me. That's it. The 7 angels are 7 time periods, and if you think that this time can't be now, then you're listening to the wrong voice in your head, and that would be Satan instead of the small, still, good voice, which is God, the truth. We're in the 6th time period, and the 7th time period is when the reaping begins. You better pay attention to that.
Excuse me.
Don't think you are saved because you believe Jesus is God's son, or because your church tells you that you are saved. Only God knows if you are saved. In 2 Esdras 5:1, God, the ruler of the universe, said, Nevertheless, concerning the tokens and signs, behold, the day shall come, in which a majority of them that dwell on the earth shall be taken in and deceived. Revelation 12:9, and the ways of the truth shall be hidden, the covenant and God's laws, by politicians, priests,
and rabbis and imams, and the land shall be barren of faith, but inequity and inequality shall be increased. And the land that thou seest now have root, thou shalt see washed away suddenly, from desertification caused by deforestation, drought, climate change, wasted pollutants from nitrates, heavy metals, chemtrails, Agent Orange, radioactive armaments, big corporations poisoning the environment, big pharma, the military-industrial complex, Fukushima, men inhaling and exhaling is called breathing, and that's what they're going to be taxing you on next. Don't forget, your name is in all capital letters also. Don't think they're not going to do this to you. I'm not doing anything that's out of order. You're doing something that's out of order. I'm not doing anything that's sort of out of order. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Let go of me. Let go of me. Let go of me. I'm not doing anything that's out of order. I'm not doing anything that's out of order. No, absolutely not. You're out of order. You're out of order. I am allowed to discuss what I want in this meeting. And he allotted his 5 minutes to me, and that's what they've done last week and any other time. He does not own this building. God owns this building, and it belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to you people at all.
We can do it. Nobody else was timed.
Exactly. I was the only one that was timed.
They were all timed.
Forget it.
This is not town business.
Yeah,
Not town
exactly.
business.
Exactly.
Good night. Good night.
Too bad. No. Let go. Don't touch me. Keep your hands off me. Keep your hands off of me. I know what you asked me, and I will be finished with this right here. That's it.
No.
You're out of order.
I am not out of order. You're out of order. You're out of order.
Be arrested for disorderly.
I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything.
Disorderly.
I'm not doing
Turn the lights
anything.
off and then come back.
That's it.
This doesn't
Not town business. Good night.
Not on town business.
Yeah, that's right.
Move on to the town clerk's agenda.
Bid opening, cleaning contract for town hall. Received Valhalla Fire District budget for 2018 and Thornwood Fire District budget for 2018. Received building department report for September 2017. Zoning board agenda, October 12th, 2017. Planning board agenda, October 16th, 2017. Received liquor license, LBBB Limited, DBA Little Big Bite Burger Bistro, 652 Columbus Avenue, Thornwood, New York. Received from the town of Greenberg, notice of public hearing, reference, special permit application for operation of a gasoline service station and convenience store. Received from the town of Greenberg, notice of public hearing, reference local law amending chapter 285, remove restrictions against beekeeping, 50 tax certiorari's, and 385 small claim assessments.
H and I would be referred to our town attorney. Move on to our council reports. Mr. McCarthy.
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Board, ladies and gentlemen of the public, I have the Comptroller's memo dated today, October 24, 2017. The following claims are submitted for town board approval for the following departments. Under GF prepaid expenses, we have NYC DOT permits of $30,436, attorney fees, August, $1,325, building town hall, various service contracts, totaling $4,841.95. Off-street parking, we have New York State DOT, parking permit, $1,400. Information services, we have Pleasantville Community Television video development of $950. Public safety, we have parts for equipment, $1,462.26. Safety inspection, we have elevator inspections and blasting fees of total of $2,650. Eastern Heat, the Recreation Center, we have heating and cooling annual service to HVAC at $1,990. General repairs, we have a lot of blacktop, asphalt and sand, total of $7,582.79. Home community services, we have tap refunds at $3,209.10. Mechanical Water District Number 1, we have Hypo Solution at Pocanico at $333. Kensko Water, same hypo solution at $1,887. Gifts and donations, several gifts and donations, thank you, to the Town Fall Foliage Festival, a total of $3,788.73. All items have been reviewed and audited by the comptroller. The grand total is $61,855.83. Respectfully submitted for approval.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy.
Is there a question?
All right. No, I apologize. I'm going to abstain from this one because Burger Hardware did.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, abstention from Mr. Rubio. Need a second?
Motion to pay the bills. Or not.
Second.
Second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention. Mr. Rubio. Motion carries. Thank you.
I'd just like to finish, if we can just advertise a one-pager summary as requested on our webpage. Hopefully utilize our Facebook page and maybe the Access channel, if we could do that for the next public information hearing for the DOT and MTA.
Councilman Rubio.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have only one item on this evening's agenda, which is Purchase Order 18618. The vendor is BMS, excuse me, not DNS as it says in the agenda, BMS Data 911. These are for our modems for our police cars so that they can connect wirelessly to the internet and connect with our server back at headquarters for any sort of information they may need to obtain while they're out on the road, traffic stops, etc. The cost is $1,596, and I move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Rubio.
Second.
Second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Councilwoman Smalley.
I have 3 items this evening. Memo number 88 is an approval to appoint Mary Ann Carey as Commission Board Member effective October 25th, 2017. This is to the Recreation Commission. Move for approval, please.
That term expires in 2024.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Smalley.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Memo number 89, Rec and Parks is requesting the approval of the following part-time employees effective October 14th, 2017. Giuliano Castellano, Ryan Hayes, Ryan Perucci, Marissa Portanova, and Kaylee Donnelly. The range for salary is between $10 and $20 an hour, dependent upon the event that they're servicing. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley.
Second.
Second by Ms. Rubio. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The last item this evening is memo number 90. It's the Recreation and Parks is requesting the approval of John Petroselli and Scott Naylor to attend Pond and Lake Management Workshop scheduled for December 7th, 2017 at the County Center in White Plains. The fee is $45 per person for a total of $90. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley.
Second.
Always for Pond.
Pond and Lake Management.
Yes, there's a correction to the printing in the agenda. It's Pond.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I move for approval, and someone else second?
I second.
Thank
Second
you.
by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. That's it for my report.
Councilman DiPaolo.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening to the public. On behalf of the Highway Department, I have 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first is seeking authorization to add the following roads to the Westchester County, Town of Mount Pleasant Local Highway Roads Inventory. 0.19 mile of Alpine Terrace, 0.05 of Cedar Street Extension, 0.09 of Country Club Lane, 0.06 of Grove Street, 0.07 of Linda Avenue, 0.20 of Lorenz Drive, 0.09 of Mount Pleasant Avenue, 0.10 of Reginald Street, 0.09 of St. Charles Street, and 0.09 of Stella Lane. Again, this is to add those following streets to the Westchester County, Town of Mount Pleasant Local Highway Inventory. Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rubio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Second item is seeking authorization to, for a curb cut permit 1451, and that is to deposit $480 into escrow for work to be completed at 223 Elwood Avenue in the name of Edmund and Deborah Hanley. Upon satisfactory completion of that work, the amount can be refunded. Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is our schedule of meetings. Wednesday, November 8th will be our work session, as we had changed. Tuesday, November 14th will be our business session at 8 p.m. Being no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rubio, second by Mr. DiPaolo. Motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.